After the knight finishes his tale, the company approves enthusiastically. The host then invites the monk to tell a story that would match the knightess. However, the miller, extremely drunk, interrupts loudly, insisting he has a tale to rival the knight's. Despite the host's attempts to dissuade him, calling him a fool, and acknowledging his drunkenness, the miller persists. He starts to introduce a tale about a clerk who tricks a carpenter and his wife, immediately provoking the reeve, a carpenter himself, who tries to silence him. The miller refuses, arguing that tales about adulterous wives are fair game. Before the miller's tale begins, the narrator interrupts, reiterating a sentiment from the general prologue that he must repeat all the tales told, without evil intent, to avoid falsifying his material. He advises readers who might find the tale offensive to turn over the leaf and choose another story, emphasizing that men should not seek serious morals in trivial things. In Oxford, a rich carpenter lived with his young wife, Alison, and a poor clerk named Nicholas, a student of astrology. The carpenter, aware of the potential for being cuckolded due to the age difference with his wife, was fiercely protective of her. One day, while the carpenter was away, Nicholas began to flirt with Alison. He grabbed her by the waist, professing his love, and eventually persuaded her to sleep with him. However, they needed a plan to deceive the jealous carpenter. Another clerk, Absalom, was also infatuated with Alison. He serenaded her at night, but Alison, in love with Nicholas, dismissed his advances. Nicholas devised a cunning plan to spend the night with Alison. He feigned illness and locked himself in his room over the weekend. On Sunday night, the carpenter, worried about Nicholas, sent his servant to check on him. The servant saw Nicholas in a trance and reported back to the carpenter, who, thinking Nicholas had discovered a divine secret through his astrology, broke down the door. Nicholas swore the carpenter to secrecy and told him that a flood, like Noah's, would come on Monday night. He convinced the carpenter to hang 3 large troughs filled with supplies from the ceiling, one for each of them, so they could float to safety. He also insisted they remain silent in their troughs, and that they should be spaced apart. The gullible carpenter agreed and spent the day preparing. On Monday night, the 3 of them climbed into their troughs. As the carpenter soon fell asleep, Nicholas and Alison snuck down to spend the night together. Meanwhile, Absalom, believing the carpenter was away, came to woo Alison. He sung to her at a low window, but she mocked him and told him to leave. Absalom pleaded for a kiss, and Alison, with Nicholas watching, tricked him by sticking her bare bottom out of the window. Absalom kissed it, felt something hairy, and realized he had been duped. Humiliated, he vowed revenge. Absalom borrowed a hot poker from a blacksmith and returned to the carpenter's house. He knocked on the window, promising Alison a ring. Nicholas decided to add to the joke by sticking his rear out of the window. Absalom, instead of a kiss, branded Nicholas's buttocks with the hot poker. Nicholas screamed for water, waking the carpenter, who, thinking the flood had arrived, cut the rope holding his trough, causing him to crash through the house and into the cellar, breaking his arm. Nicholas and Alison, hearing the commotion, ran out into the street, crying for help. The neighbors rushed in to find the carpenter in a heap, babbling about a flood. Nicholas and Alison convinced everyone that the carpenter was mad. The townsfolk laughed at the carpenter's expense, dismissing his story as the delusions of a jealous old man. Thus, the miller's tale ends, with the carpenter humiliated, and the clever lovers, having had their fun,